Okay, so where we are right now, as I mentioned, we are in the protection area. And this is where, according to NIST, it's very important to implement protection mechanism and countermeasure to reduce the risk that you already figure out from the first stage. And this is the area that you really need to shine, because this is where your technical expertise will come to play. So basically, you will be in the first area here. You will be doing non-technical stuff. So you will be doing interviews. You will be doing maybe talking to the data owner, understanding the risk of the organization, listing what is the vulnerability exists. So could be a technical area that you will do. And finally, you will come up with a risk score, and you talk with the management about the risk score and the risk rank and priorities. And then once the management give you the green light to go and reduce the risk, this is when you start to implement protocols. And I said NIST is implementing controls in the same way that we implement controls in reality. We implement control to prevent attacks. We implement control to detect attacks, and we implement controls to really respond and recover from attacks. So preventive, detections, corrective controls. And that's why main function here is really representing this. So it's saying, first of all, don't do anything before you find out about your risk within your organization. And then accordingly, start to implement controls. And these controls are preventive, detective, and corrective and responding. Why? Because I wanted to make sure that I can really stop attack in all the stages of cybersecurity. So preventive controls means I would like to stop the attack before the attack take place. So if I have a timeline here for what's happening when it's an attack take place. So over here, this is the timeline. This is before the attack. I will give it B, okay? So I wanted to implement preventive control to stop the attack. One of the preventive controls that we talked about in the last few days is identity and access management. And what is identity and access management is all about? Can someone remember?
Provide permission to the user.
I'm sorry?
Specify
exactly.
the user permission.
Yeah, so identity access management means establishing IEEE. What is IEEE that we talked about before? How many stages in IEEE?
3.
Okay. Can you tell me what is the 3 stages?
Authorization, accounting.
Okay, authorization, accountability.
Authentication.
Authentication. They are 4. Okay, Ramia is saying 4. So we have first identification. Okay, and then authentication and authorization and accountability. So basically, in order to stop someone to access your network or to access your device, the first stage is to identify who is trying to access. So this is the identification. And the simple term, if you guys wanted to remember what is identification, is when you enter your username here. When you are trying to access a website, and the website will stop you and say, you know what, you need to provide your identity and you need to provide an authentication method. And I give you an example, and I kept telling you, remember this example. When you go to a bus, like the the custom area in an airport, they will stop you and they will ask you, what is your identity? And at that time, you should show them basically your passport, right? So identification also in the same manner when we are accessing a system, whether this is a website or whether this is a database or whether this is gonna be like, for example, Windows machine, okay, it will stop you and ask you for identity. So you need to provide your identity here. And your identity in a very basic term is your username, okay? Now the next stage is related to the first stage, which is authentication. Now the system will ask you to prove who you are. Okay, you're saying that your username is, for example, Lamia, okay, or Ibtisam, or Naif, right? So it will ask you for your name. So you provided your name. Now we come to authentication. Authentication means proof you're really Naif, proof you are really Ibtisam, proof you are really Lamia. How many type of authentication we can implement? Can you guys remember? Okay, now I'm gonna authenticate you. Okay, so we are now in the big authentication. How can I authenticate someone after I did identification? How can I do this?
Something,
By user, by the password of the user.
Okay,
something they have, something they
exactly.
know, something they are, or
yeah,
I believe these three. Yeah.
Okay, perfect answer. Okay, so when we try to ask you about to prove your identity, so first of all, something you know, okay, and this is a very simple way to really identify someone, especially to computer system. So this is the simplest way, okay? Something you know, like as you mentioned, guys, a password, okay? Something you are, like what? Can someone give me an example? Something you are.
Biometric.
Exactly, biometric. So biometric is something you are, okay? Something you have, like what?
Like your ID.
Exactly, like an ID. So, and also, and we mentioned that system and most of the modern technology right now that we are using a combination of two of them. Why? This is called a multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is something you know and something you are, or something you know and something you have. And this is, we call it multi-factor authentication. And basically multi-factor authentication, it is all about to protect you from only someone can attack your password and know your password. And now, okay, you are vulnerable to someone to impersonate you in a system. So they added a layer of security. And this layer of security, they said, okay, in order to access the system, now you need to provide another way of authentication, like a biometric or something you have. And this is what we also covered 2 days ago. And we also mentioned that after authentication comes to authorization. What is authorization all about?
Authorization is the permission. You do what you need, like a level of permission. Like a guest will have, like the lowest level of permission, I believe so.
Yeah, do you guys agree? Or someone has a different opinion?
Yeah, I agree.
Do you agree? Okay, who's
Yes.
Lamia? Is it Lamia or Maha? Sorry. Okay. So I'm sorry, who is talking? I cannot see the name.
Me, Faisal.
Faisal, okay. So Faisal, okay. No, Nawar, okay. Nawar, okay. So Faisal already said that something you have, authorization is all about the permission. Or once you are authenticated to a system, okay, after the authentication, it comes to what you are allowed to do in this system. So it asks you, it really check your permission or your authorization to do stuff in the system. Okay, and that's really what happened in reality. What happened is once you are authenticated, okay, they will give you different permissions. So for example, if you're accessing a banking system, okay, so you have a permission to check your account, you have your permission to do transfer, you have a permission to deposit money, right? But you don't have a permission to really change any amount you have in your current account, right? You don't have this permission. So it's always authorization about the permission you have in the system or what you can do in this system. Okay, so we mentioned there is so many techniques for authorization or access control models for authorization. You guys remember which authorization? Access control we have? I mentioned there is 3. You guys remember the names of the access control models for authorizations?
Role access control.
Okay. Role access control. Okay.
Dictionary access control.
Dictionary access control.
Mandatory.
Mandatory. Okay. So we have the dictionary access control,
and
mandatory access control.
The rules one.
Okay, and the rules was.
And the role.
Okay, and rules. Okay, so perfect. So we have MAC, DAC, and rule-based access control. And in a very simple rules. Okay, rules.
No, not rules. Role. Isn't there like a 5 of them?
It's basically the R3, okay, and rules will come as a complementary for any one of them. I will explain what we mean by complementary. So actually there is attribute-based access control, okay, based on attribute for the user. And there is also a conditional access control, but they are not very common. So there is so many access control, but the well-known ones, okay, that's most of the entire universe knows about it, is a MAC, DAC, rules, and rules, okay? And attribute access control and conditional access control, they are actually another control models, but they are not very famous. So let's talk about what is the difference between discretionary access control and MAC access control. Can you guys remember?
Dictionary.
Dictionary for the dictionary is for the admin. He can who owns the system, and
okay.
Mac is for the user to doing more high stuff or something like that. I don't remember.
I believe
Okay.
dictionary is for the owner of the file, usually like in the Windows environment, who own the file, who, you know, like put the rules for only that file for the, you know, like the group or user or other to read or whatever they want to do on it. And the other one is the mandatory. It's like you have levels like top secret, secret, and things like this. And whoever have top secret can view top secret files. Who don't, who can't.
Okay, perfect. So Naif here is saying that's mandatory. First of all, guys, we need to understand that's mandatory access control.
I am Faisal, not Naif.
Oh, Faisal, sorry. Faisal is saying that it's basically mandatory access control is used in an environment which is very secure. Like, for example, you are using it especially in the military. Okay, and in military, the system administrators will basically assign something called clearance for the users. So every user will have a clearance, okay? And every single assets or every single object within your environment will have something called confidentiality level. So basically you will see, this is the administrator, and I wanted him to implement mandatory access control. So this guy over here says, okay, if I have a user coming, I need to give him a clearance level. So the clearance is basically maybe top secret or secret, okay? And at the same time, the administrator also will assign for the objects, whether it's a file, a database, also something called confidentiality level. So he said this is gonna be also top secret. So in a very simple way, okay, or maybe you have another file here called secrets. This is gonna be the confidentiality level. If you have a top secret clearance, that means you are able to see the top secret levels, files or resources, and also you can see all the stuff down, which is maybe, for example, a folder with a secret clearance. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so who is gonna really implement the whole module is the system administrator. Where this model is really used intensively in military and in defense department. Okay, what kind of Windows or operating system they are using? We give an example as SE Linux, which is secure version of Linux, is using the clearance and also the attribute of top secret and secret for objects. So this is basically the mandatory access control. If I wanted to give, this is mandatory access control. Discretionary access control, guys, on the other hand, okay, is basically based on the owner of the asset. So you created a file in Windows. Okay, for example, you, the owner of this file. You created a file in Linux. You, the owner of this file, okay? Now it's up to you to set the permission here. So you can tell who has the read access, who has the write access, who has basically the read, write, or modification access. So this is discretionary access control. And it's very common in Windows environment. So we understand what is the mandatory access control and the discretionary access control. Keep in mind that this model is only happening after authentication. So you need to be authenticated first in order to access resources. And once you are already in the system, then we apply to you this security models or access control models. Okay, guys? And lastly is rule-based access control, which is basically we assign rules. So if you guys wanted to see what is rule access control, is also implemented in Windows environment. And rule, basically, it's creating rule according to the hierarchy of your environment. So for example, if you're working for an HR department, if you're working for sales department, then we will assign security permission for the entire rule, and this HR will be assigned permission to a certain folder. And if we have 10 users here, they are all of them working for HR, we will assign this user to the rule. So we're creating rules according to the company hierarchy, whether HR, sales, admin, and then according to the HR, we created the rules. We give this rule permission to a certain folder, certain printer, certain maybe the database or certain system within the organization. And finally, we assign the user to the rules over here. So it's very easy, very organized way in your organization to assign rules and then assign user to rules and permission. So this is the 3 access model. The last A, guys, here, which is when we say AAA, it stands for accountability. What is accountability here that we mean?
We mean logs. So we like log everything everybody do. So like if something happened bad, we know who did it, or if we wanna like get back to whatever happened, who did it, we can like get that from the logs.
Yeah, tracking user, as Taghreed is saying here. Okay, can someone tell me something else logs can establish? Okay, so logs can really can help us to track users. Okay, logs can be an artifacts that's if an incident happened within my organization, I can tell what exactly happened. Okay, also logs can establish something called non-repudiation. You remember what is non-repudiation is all about? What is non-repudiation?
It's not repeating the data twice or manipulating it. That's pretty much it.
Non-repudiation. Okay, guys, remember that what we explain what is cybersecurity is all about. Cybersecurity, basically protecting your information assets. In order to protect your information asset, what kind of pillars we need to ensure?
Confidentiality and integrity and accessibility.
Okay, so we said that cybersecurity definition, okay, as CS, okay, in order to protect your data, you need to ensure 5 pillars, okay? Naif said one of the pillars is confidentiality, and Ibtisam saying that's CIA, which is integrity.
I'm not Naif.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
Faisal.
Faisal, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know why Naif is always coming to my mind. Okay, maybe this is a call for Naif to start to participate. Okay, Faisal is saying it's confidentiality, integrity, availability, okay, CIA. But I also mentioned in the first 2 days that we really need also
non-repudiation,
non-repudiation, right?
And
authentication. Yes, authentication. So in order to have a secure system, guys, we need to establish all these 5 pillars, okay? And if you can tell, now we can tell why when we applied NIST framework, we looked at the identity access management in the first column here, okay? It's saying basically that, okay, authentication, guys, okay, it will only allow authorized person to access the resources. This is what authentication is all about. So identification and authentication is all about how can we ensure that this person is really a proper user and he have the access to see our data. And this is what really can help us to achieve confidentiality. So confidentiality is all about what? I wanted only authorized person to see the data. So identification here and authentication can help me to achieve confidentiality. How about integrity? What is integrity is all about? What is integrity is all about? Yes.
Integrity is making sure that the information is not modified by unauthorized person.
Yes, perfect. So now when we said that integrity is all about modification, so I will only allow modification for an authorized person. And if you can see, guys, this is also is being achieved by these 2 pillars over here. So authentication, you first authorize the persons, and then you authorize them to do some changes in the system. So now authorization here can help us to achieve integrity. So you can see that IAAA is helping us. Okay, another one here is also, we said that's confidentiality, integrity, and non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means a user cannot deny his action in the system. So once he did it, I have a log file saying basically this is what happened, right? Okay, guys. Okay, yes. So we have. Okay, so we have here, guys. If you guys see that the last A over here is saying basically accountability. I want to establish accountability, so I want us to establish audit